Most people think letting go is just about moving on, getting over it, blocking, deleting, pretending you're fine. But spiritually, it's far deeper than that. When you finally decide to let someone go, really let go, it's like your soul hits a reset button. You don't just lose a person, you start to lose the version of yourself that existed with them. Letting go isn't just hard, it's disorienting. People don't talk enough about that. One moment you're clinging to the familiar chaos of someone who made you feel seen. The next, you're staring at a silence that feels heavier than their absence. It's not just a breakup. It's a full-body spiritual shift that can feel like your whole identity is crumbling. And honestly, in a way, it is. Carl Jung, the visionary who transformed modern psychology, understood this deeply. He believed that what we call letting go is often the start of something much bigger, the beginning of becoming who you really are. But here's what no one tells you. Before you meet that deeper self, you must sit in the wreckage of who you no longer are. In that silence, something profound happens. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming one's true self. But what he didn't shy away from is the pain that comes with it. Letting go of someone you've loved, depended on, or built your identity around feels like a collapse. Not just emotionally, but spiritually. It's a kind of death, not theirs, but yours. The self you constructed to survive, built on attachment, validation, and the illusion that your peace depended on another, begins to dissolve. Jung believed that our unconscious minds hold on to archetypes, patterns of behavior and identity that dictate how we live, love, and suffer. The moment we let go of someone, we also let go of an archetype we once embodied. Maybe you were the giver, the savior, or the dependent. But when that role is stripped away, you are left with a terrifying question: who am I without them? And that is where the real transformation begins. Jung often wrote about the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we suppress. Letting go of someone forces you to face that shadow head-on. The loneliness, the grief, the identity crisis, they are all invitations to confront what you've been avoiding. When you release a person, you release more than just a relationship. You release the comfort of distraction. The wounds you once numbed with their presence are now exposed. It's in that raw, vulnerable space that most people either run back to the past or numb themselves with something new. But Jung's philosophy teaches us otherwise. He tells us to stay in the discomfort, to not turn away from the abyss, but to enter it. Because beyond the abyss, beyond the pain of loss, is something extraordinary. The emergence of the self you were always meant to be. Alchemy was one of Jung's favorite metaphors for psychological transformation. He saw the process of individuation as an internal alchemy, where suffering is the fire that refines the soul. Letting go, then, is not merely loss. It is the beginning of a spiritual transmutation. What happens spiritually when you let someone go? You are being burned down to your essence. The illusions fall away, and what remains is raw, unfiltered truth. The mind resists this, of course. It clings to the past, replays memories, and tries to reconstruct what is gone. But the soul knows better. It understands that the breakdown is the breakthrough. Jung reminds us that the self is not something we find, it is something we create. And it is only through loss that we are given the space to build again, this time with awareness, with depth, with authenticity. Eventually, the grief softens. The silence that once felt unbearable begins to feel sacred. You start to realize that what you lost was never truly yours, and what remains is something far more valuable: you. Jung believed that true individuation requires letting go of external dependencies and turning inward. It is not about becoming detached from the world, but about forming a connection with the deepest parts of yourself. The version of you that was built around another person is gone, but in its place, something more powerful emerges. Letting go, then, is not the end of a relationship. It is the end of a false self. And what comes next is nothing short of a spiritual awakening. So, when you let someone go, know this: you are not losing, you are becoming, you are evolving. And in that sacred process, you are stepping into the fullest expression of who you were always meant to be. Solitude is not loneliness. It is sacred space. Jung believed that true self-discovery happens in isolation, not in constant entanglement with others. When you let someone go, you are given the opportunity to listen, to truly hear your inner voice without the interference of external influences. This is where you learn the language of your soul. This is where you begin to see yourself, not through the distorted reflection of another, but through your own unfiltered awareness. Solitude is the space where healing begins, where the shattered pieces of yourself start to realign into something whole, something new. Letting go is not just about release, it is about reclamation. You reclaim the energy you once poured into another. You reclaim the love you outsourced. You reclaim the power you gave away in the name of attachment. Jung believed that power is not something we seek externally. It is something we awaken within ourselves. When you let go, you begin to redirect your energy toward creation rather than clinging. You shift from seeking completion in another to realizing that you were always whole. Rebirth is not a single moment. It is a slow, unfolding process. Every day you awaken as a slightly different version of yourself. Jung understood that transformation is not linear. It is cyclical. You will grieve, you will doubt, you will long for what was. But with every passing moment, you are stepping deeper into the truth of who you are. You will find that letting go was never about loss. It was about making space. Making space for new experiences, for new understanding, for a life that aligns with your truest essence. Most people fear the unknown because it lacks certainty. But Jung believed that the unknown is where true growth lies. When you let someone go, you step into a space of uncertainty, one where the old structures have crumbled and the new has yet to be built. But this space is sacred. It is where creation happens. It is where you get to redefine what love means, what connection means, what you mean to yourself. The unknown is not to be feared. It is to be embraced. Letting go is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where you stand fully in your own power, where you no longer seek validation outside of yourself, where you understand that love, true love, starts within. Jung reminds us that the path to self-realization is not easy. It requires courage, patience, and faith in the unseen. But in the end, it leads you to the greatest truth of all. You are enough. You always were. Letting go is not a single act, but 1,000 tiny surrenders. We tell ourselves we've moved on, deleted the photos, erased the messages, even laughed about the past. But the soul operates on a different timeline. Spiritually, letting go is not about forgetting, it's about unbecoming. Carl Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." But before that choice comes a period of disintegration. When you release someone, you're not just losing their presence, you're losing the version of yourself that only existed in relation to them. The one who knew how to love them, argue with them, quiet their storms. That self, the one shaped by the relationship, doesn't just vanish. It lingers like a ghost, haunting the edges of your new life. This is why letting go feels like vertigo. The ground beneath you, the familiar routines, the shared jokes, the future you imagined, collapses. What's left is an eerie silence where their voice used to be. But here's the secret Jung uncovered. That silence is not empty. It's fertile. It's the space where your true self begins to whisper. Most people rush to fill this void, new relationships, distractions, busyness, but the soul demands stillness. Because in that stillness you confront the question, who was I before them? Who am I now? The answers don't come quickly. They unfold like a slow sunrise after the longest night. Jung called it individuation, the journey toward wholeness. But he also warned, there is no birth of consciousness without pain. Letting go is a death, not of the person you loved, but of the identity you built around them, the caregiver, the fixer, the one who needed fixing. Consider this. Every relationship assigns you a role. You play it so well you forget it's a performance, but when the curtain falls, you're left standing alone, costume in hand, wondering who you are without the script. This is the crisis Jung revered. It's the moment the ego fractures and the deeper self stirs awake. Think of the archetypes Jung studied: the lover, the hero, the martyr. These are not just stories, they're templates we cling to for meaning. When a relationship ends, so does the archetype you embodied within it. The martyr can no longer sacrifice. The hero has no one to save. The lover has no object for their affection. This is the spiritual crossroads. Do you scramble to resurrect the old role, or do you stand naked in the truth of who you are beyond it? Jung's answer is clear. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But first, you must bury who you were not. Jung's shadow theory reveals the hardest truth about letting go. You're not just grieving them. You're grieving the parts of yourself they mirrored back to you. Their absence exposes what you've avoided: your loneliness, your neediness, your unhealed wounds. Most people fear this abyss. They numb it with rebounds, work, or substances. But Jungian wisdom insists the only way out is through. The shadow isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. It shows you where you've outsourced your worth, where you've confused love with possession, where you've abandoned yourself. Here's an exercise Jung might prescribe. In the quiet after loss, ask, what did this person reflect about me that I'm afraid to face? What parts of myself did I silence to keep them close? What if this pain isn't the end, but an initiation? The answers won't come in words. They'll arrive as dreams, as synchronicities, as a sudden clarity in the shower. This is the soul's language. Alchemists sought to turn lead into gold. Jung saw this as a metaphor for the psyche. Suffering is the fire that purifies. Letting go is your crucible. Consider the stages of alchemy: Nigredo, the blackening; the despair of loss; the nights you sob into your pillow; Albedo, the whitening; the first glimmers of insight; the morning you wake up and don't reach for your phone to text them; Rubedo, the reddening; the rebirth, the day you realize their absence taught you how to hold yourself. This isn't poetic abstraction, it's neurobiology. Studies show heartbreak activates the same brain regions as physical pain. But Jung's genius was recognizing that this pain rewires you. It burns away the illusions you mistook for love. When the moment comes to truly let go, it is not a single act of will, but a slow unraveling of the soul. You do not decide to release someone and find yourself free the next morning. Instead, you wake each day with the weight still there, a little lighter some mornings, heavier on others. And then, one day, you realize you have been breathing without remembering their name. This is the silent alchemy of the heart, where absence no longer feels like a wound, but like an old scar, one that no longer aches but reminds you of the depth you once carried. This is where the journey begins, not at the moment of separation, but in the quiet afterward, where you are left alone with the echoes of who you used to be. Most run from silence. They mistake it for loneliness, for abandonment. But there is a sacredness in the hollow spaces left behind when someone departs. It is here, in this quiet, that the soul begins to speak. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He called it the confrontation with the unconscious, the moment when the noise of the world fades, and what remains is the voice you have spent years drowning out. The voice that asks, who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when no one is left to perform for? This is the great paradox of letting go. You release another, only to find yourself. We wear masks in love, not out of deceit, but survival. We become what we believe will keep us safe, will keep us chosen. The caretaker, the strong one, the one who never demands. But when love ends, these masks begin to crack, and beneath them is not nothingness, but a face you have forgotten, your own. Jung spoke of the persona, the social self we present to the world. But he also warned that when we confuse the persona with the true self, we lose something essential. Letting go strips these layers away. It is painful, yes, like peeling skin from a wound. But beneath is raw, unfiltered life. Ask yourself now, who was I before I learned to bend for love? That is the self waiting to be reclaimed. No one tells you this about grief. It is not only sadness you feel, but rage, resentment, relief, a shameful freedom. These are the shadow emotions, the ones we bury because they do not fit the story we tell about love. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we exile because they are too dark, too messy. But here is the truth. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your unclaimed power. The anger you suppress is the same force that could have set boundaries. The desperation you hid is the hunger for a love you never gave yourself. Letting go forces you to meet these exiled parts, to sit with them, to ask, what if the love I lost was never the love I needed? We think of longing as weakness, a failure to move on. But Jung saw it differently. Longing is the soul's compass. It does not point backward to what is lost. It points inward to what is missing within you. Every ache for another is a disguised ache for yourself, for the parts you abandoned to keep them close, for the voice you silenced to avoid conflict, for the dreams you postponed to make space for theirs. This is the secret of alchemy. The love you seek outside is the love you must first uncover within. After loss, desire feels dangerous. To want again is to risk pain, so we shut it down. We tell ourselves we are better off alone, but this is not healing. It is fear in disguise. Jung warned against this. He knew that to cut off desire is to cut off life. The goal is not to stop wanting, but to want more wisely. To direct that energy not toward another, but toward the life you have been too afraid to claim. Ask yourself, what do I truly desire? Not from another, but from existence itself. That is where your power lies. There is a purity in the heartbreak that follows letting go, a strange return to innocence. You are no longer the person who believed love could save you. You are no longer the person who thought you needed saving at all. This is what Jung meant by individuation, the return to the self, not as a child, but as someone who has seen the dark and still chooses the light. Letting go is not an ending. It is the first act of a life you have not yet imagined. One where love is not a demand, but an offering, where you are no longer half of something, but whole on your own. Jung's greatest lesson was this: you are not what was done to you. You are what you choose to become in the aftermath. And so you begin, not because you are ready, but because the soul does not ask for permission to grow. It only asks for courage. And you, after all this time, are finally brave enough to answer. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the weight of what was lost becomes indistinguishable from the weightlessness of what is about to be found. You stand at the threshold of your own becoming, no longer defined by the absence of another, but by the presence of something far more vast, your own undivided being. This is the sacred paradox Carl Jung spent his life unraveling, that in releasing the world we do not lose it, but finally perceive it. That in letting go we do not diminish, but expand beyond the boundaries of what we once believed possible. This is not an ending. This is the emergence. Long after the tears have dried and the memories have softened at their edges, something quiet and monumental takes root within you. You begin to sense it first in the pauses, the way you no longer reach for your phone to share small wonders, the way your laughter no longer searches for their echo. At first, this feels like loss. Then, one morning, you recognize it for what it truly is, the silent reconstruction of your soul. Jung called this process individuation, the slow, inevitable unfolding of the self toward its own wholeness. But language fails to capture the visceral truth of it. This is not merely moving on. This is the meticulous dismantling of every false structure you built to accommodate a love that asked you to be smaller than you were. Brick by brick, you tear down the walls you once mistook for shelter, and what is revealed is not emptiness, but sky. Here is the secret no one tells you about letting go. What you release was never yours to begin with. The love you grieve, the future you imagined, the version of yourself that only existed in relation to them. These were never your essence. They were reflections, projections, beautiful illusions that showed you not what you had, but what you longed to believe about yourself. Now, stripped bare of these borrowed identities, you stand at the most terrifying and exhilarating crossroads of your life, the moment you realize you are not who you thought you were. Memory is not a static thing. It breathes, shifts, transforms alongside you. The love you once believed would destroy you if lost now sits gently in your palms like a relic from another age. You turn it over, studying its contours with curiosity rather than anguish. This is the alchemy Jung revered, the mysterious process by which pain becomes wisdom, and what once burned now illuminates. Try this. Close your eyes and summon their face, not as you last saw it, tense with farewell, but as it lives now in your mind's eye. Observe what happens in your body, the clench in your chest, the warmth in your belly, the absence of sensation where once there was fire. This is your soul's way of showing you where the work has taken root, where attachment has become understanding, where longing has become a quiet gratitude for the lessons etched into your bones. You are not forgetting. You are remembering, gathering the scattered pieces of yourself that you left in their keeping and integrating them back into your being. This is why the ancients spoke of the phoenix, not because it emerges unscathed from the ashes, but because it carries the ashes within its new wings for months, perhaps years,